Day 1 through 3, the journey begins. A software engineer by trade, Beth had come to Glacier for solitude and mornings gilded by sun on the ridgelines. In July of 2012, she'd set out on a 5-day solo camping trip, drawn back yet again by Glacier's unmistakable beauty. Turquoise lakes rimmed by towering peaks, meadows awash in summer wildflowers, and ancient conifer forests that carried century-old whispers on the mountain breeze. For her, there was nothing quite like waking up to the crisp, clean air of Montana's high country and feeling the gentle thrill for whatever lay beyond the next bend. An experienced hiker, well-versed in challenging terrain, Beth took comfort in peaceful depths of hidden trails, where mossy stones led to breathtaking overlooks and the rustle of undergrowth hinted at wildlife nearby. She felt prepared to handle sudden rainstorms or steep ascents, but she never imagined that before this trip was done, she would rely on senses far keener than her own, those belonging to a steadfast canine she'd never met. On the 3rd day of her journey, that sense of peaceful exploration vanished. Earlier that morning, she'd sensed something odd in the air, maybe a dryness in the breeze, or the lull in the birds, but she continued as usual, trusting her instincts. In the late afternoon, she spotted the cub rummaging in a lush berry patch no more than 60 feet away, its soft brown fur standing out against the emerald leaves. A jolt of alarm shot through her. She felt the thin line between fear and awe snap beneath the bear's roar, as though every cedar and pine conspired to remind her how fragile her human plans truly were. In that one heartbeat, Beth realized she was no longer the confident hiker. She was simply another vulnerable creature in Glacier's ancient domain. Knowing that bolting might provoke the mother lurking nearby, she drew a steadying breath and spent what felt like 40 agonizing minutes inching backwards on unsteady legs. Focused on each cautious step, careful not to snap a twig, she lost track of the faint outline of her route. By the time the cub wandered deeper into the brush, the light had changed. The sun was sinking faster than she'd expected, hidden behind thick clouds rolling in over the ridges. A quick glance at her watch told her it was already past 7. It grew dark as though dusk had arrived early. Clouds crept across the sky like a closing curtain, and the thick canopy swallowed what remained of the day's light. She hadn't realized how far she'd strayed. Now every tree trunk faded together in the shifting shadows. She blinked hard, trying to distinguish one stand of pines from another, alarmed at how easily they merged into a single, impenetrable wall. Although the compass needle pointed north, the terrain offered no easy path. Dense undergrowth tangled with jagged rock, hiding anything that resembled her original trail. With the forest floor surrendering to near darkness, Beth felt a tightness in her chest. She paused, heart thumping, and glanced over her shoulder. No sign of the bear, but no sign of the trail either. The pines stood in silent ranks, identical in every direction. She turned in place, hoping to spot a distinctive fallen log or a familiar bend. Anything to guide her. Nothing. Her chest clenched at the stark truth. The forest had swallowed her steps, leaving her alone in Glacier's wild tangle. For the first time, she felt the full weight of Glacier's vastness, an endless sprawl of green and shadow. In that moment, she understood she was only a fleeting presence here, like a single gust passing through centuries of silent growth. A weighty stillness settled over the woods as the last glow of daylight melted into twilight. The towering pines, once reassuring in their majesty, now blurred into silhouettes of gray and green. A gentle breeze stirred above, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant water. In that half-light, every shape seemed to shift. The evening stillness held a kind of sacred beauty. She took a few more steps beneath the tall pines, scanning the dim shapes for a natural shelter. At last, she found a slight hollow in the bend of an old cedar, its trunk curving enough to block the breeze. The ground, padded with soft needles, became her makeshift bed. She tried coaxing a few twigs into a small fire, but the forest's dampness smothered the glow. Accepting the forest's gentle refusal, she pulled her jacket tighter and let the cedar's rough bark anchor her back, offering a hint of security against the night's unknowns. As crickets began their nightly chorus, she allowed her thoughts to drift toward home, imagining the warmth of her familiar bed. In the stillness, her mind wandered to lines of code she'd once written, loops and conditions that, in their own logical way, gave her comfort. The faint, musty scent of moss and damp bark felt oddly reassuring, reminding her she was still anchored in a living world, even here in its lonely corner. Folding her jacket into a pillow, she settled in, listening to the mingled hum of distant crickets and the soft rustle of leaves overhead. Each exhale released a fraction of her fear. Bit by bit, her racing thoughts gave way to a heavy drowsiness. And in the fading glow of twilight, she closed her eyes, letting the forest cradle her until sleep finally claimed her, one soft breath at a time. All the while, across the park, a trained German shepherd named Shadow is going through the last stretch of his day, nose at the ready. Day 4, Gentle Hopes and Simple Wonders. Early the next morning, back at Beth's makeshift cedar hollow, she awoke on the 4th day to a soft, pearly light filtering through the cedar's branches. She took a moment to gather her thoughts, absorbing the hushed serenity of the forest as birds began their early chorus. The air held a cool clarity, and despite feeling adrift, she found a gentle hope in the dawn. Sipping from the stream she discovered the night before, she then tried her luck with a makeshift fishing pole. Although the fish remained elusive, the simple act of dipping her line into the water felt calming, as if nature were quietly urging her to keep going. Even though she knew she was far from any well-trodden path, the morning still offered a subdued comfort. At one point, a flicker of color caught her eye. A rare butterfly fluttering just above the stream's surface, its wings shimmering like a living mosaic of orange and black. Beth paused, forgetting the fishing line in her hand, transfixed as it alighted on a nearby stone, barely disturbing the silence. In that instant, it felt like the forest had sent an envoy, proof that beauty could erupt from even the most hidden corners. The butterfly's delicate presence, so bold yet so fragile, seemed a small gift from the wilderness, a reminder that even in uncertainty, simple wonders could still appear. By midday, a curtain of clouds drifted across the sky, bringing a soft patter of rain. Beth took it in stride, gathering leafy branches to reinforce her modest shelter. Raindrops fell in a gentle rhythm, weaving a tapestry of sound against the canopy. Although the day's progress seemed slow, she held on to a quiet resolve. Each step she took, each small task she completed, reminded her that she was still capable of guiding herself through Glacier's wild embrace. Through the afternoon, she listened to the gentle drum of rain on pine needles, letting the forest's ceaseless lullaby calm her thoughts. Her mind drifted back to cherished memories of home, fueling a determination to keep going. Tomorrow, she told herself, would bring fresh clarity and the promise of finding her way. That evening, as dusk settled in, Beth performed a tiny mental ritual. Her gratitude list, version 1.0. She whispered thanks for the cool stream water, the butterfly's fleeting but precious cameo, and the mildness of the rain that hadn't turned into a storm. A memory nudged its way in. At age 10, she and her cousin once took a night hike near their grandparents' farm, all giggles and flashlights bobbing in the dark. She remembered how every rustle or snapping twig felt like a monster creeping toward them. Yet at the end of that trail, they were safe. And her grandfather joked that sometimes the scariest things are the wild ideas in your head. It comforted her, even now. She thought of how, in her coding projects, one errant line of code could send a program into an endless loop, just as the forest might send her in circles if she tried to force her own route. Perhaps the only way forward was to break out and let Glacier's timeless rhythms guide her next move. A quiet realization came to her that in this ancient land, her ambitions and deadlines meant nothing. The forest asked only for respect and openness, not a perfect plan. With that final reassuring thought, she drifted into a calm sleep once more. Back at the ranger station, Shadow explored a small training yard. His handler offered a worn bandana, letting him inhale a single thread of scent, practice for the new search that might come any day. Though the night was quiet, the team knew how quickly the forest could swallow an unsuspecting hiker. Day 5, a lesson in adaptation. Dawn arrived with a chill wind on the 5th day. Beth felt her energy wane from hunger and restless nights. She noticed a small tear along the left sleeve of her jacket, a sign of how easily the forest could wear down her gear. Each step along the forest floor reminded her she was low on reserves, both physical and mental. Briefly, she considered scaling a rocky incline in hopes of spotting a landmark. But the idea of more rugged ground in her weary state gave her pause. Instead, she recalled a vital search and rescue principle. Once lost, staying put often makes it easier for rescuers to find you. The memory of that guideline settled over her, nudging her to conserve what little energy she had left. Beth gathered loose needles and arranged a modest space to wait. Though her nerves fluttered, a quiet resolve took hold. She would remain visible, keep as comfortable as possible, and trust that help would come. She gathered a few of the driest twigs she could find, even peeling bits of bark in hopes they'd catch more easily. The forest's lingering damp had other plans, though. And after a few sputters of orange embers, the tiny fire fizzled into a curl of pale smoke. Still, simply gathering kindling and feeling its warmth reminded her she wasn't helpless. It gave her a small spark of purpose, enough to keep her going. She gazed at the last streaks of sunset and realized nothing had gone according to plan. Yet there was a quiet lesson in that. The forest, in all its vastness, was a reminder she couldn't control every situation. Maybe true freedom meant adapting to what lay beyond her grasp, letting each challenge sharpen her sense of gratitude and humility. She marveled at how painstakingly she'd charted her route, only to have one bare encounter unravel all her careful notes. She recalled a playful side project she'd tackled last summer, a small puzzle game that displayed a tiny ASCII cat whenever the user typed a hidden command. She'd spent hours refining the logic, smiling at how a few lines of code could surprise and delight anyone who stumbled on her secret. As evening settled, she pulled her jacket tighter and leaned against the pine's rough bark, again drawing comfort from its solidity. Through a gap in the canopy, she glimpsed the Milky Way's delicate shimmer. Faint silver stretched across the sky. The moon rose, illuminating swaying branches overhead, while a distant owl called in steady rhythm. In that moonlight stillness, a soft rustle in the undergrowth caught Beth's ear. She glanced up to see a slender fox emerge from behind a cluster of ferns, its fur silvered by the pale light. For a breathless moment, it locked eyes with her, curious yet unafraid. The moonlight made its fur shimmer like liquid silver, as if the forest itself had come alive to greet her. Then, with a small tilt of its head, the fox slipped back into deeper shadows, leaving Beth to wonder if she had dreamed the whole encounter. In that gentle moonlit scene, she closed her eyes and pictured home. Soft blankets, familiar voices, letting the forest's lullaby guide her into sleep. A fleeting image came. Late-night chess with her mom, back when she was 13. It was her mother's antidote to stress, brewing mint tea, setting out an ancient chessboard. Focus on one move at a time, her mom would say, and everything else will wait. Yes, one move at a time was enough. Beth settled for the night, unaware that across Glacier, a certain dog was also taking steady steps toward an unknown rescue. Far away, Shadow, the German Shepherd, had been training daily, breathing in new scents, learning how to track a missing human. Eventually, Beth's quiet resolve would meet the dog's daily preparation, though neither knew it yet. So Beth lingered another night, still lost but holding on to hope, while the gears of her rescue began to turn. Day 6, searching shadows and patient resolve. That same evening, her family, concerned that Beth hadn't returned, alerted park authorities to her disappearance. By the morning of the 6th day, rangers and volunteers gathered at dawn, greeted by a gentle drizzle and the lingering mist of early light. A stillness settled over the forest, calm yet complicating the search. Low clouds clung to the treetops, obscuring distant landmarks, and the wet undergrowth made every footstep cautious. Methodically, the rangers scanned for footprints or disturbances, calling her name into the quiet expanse. They had one priority: find Beth before fatigue or exposure got worse. Although everything felt strangely tranquil, the muffled sounds and shifting fog made it difficult to pick up a clear trail. When midday drifted in, a mild lull fell over the rain. The air smelled of wet earth and evergreens, and Beth discovered a measured calm in the serenity of this secluded corner of Glacier. She tried once more to fish in the shallow stream, though her attempts yielded little. The act reminded her of the world's quiet continuity, life flowing on, even in hidden places. By late afternoon, the forest dimmed again under thickening clouds, yet she clung to hope that a ranger's voice or a distant shout might carry through the pines. As twilight approached, the day's fatigue returned. Still, she drew comfort from the gentle sway of branches and the stillness that dusk brought. Arranging a few leafy boughs for extra insulation, she reminded herself that with every night endured, she was a step closer to being found. Before closing her eyes, she softly recited another gratitude list, version 2.0, murmuring thanks for the brief clearing of the rain, the stillness that kept her heart at ease, and the possibility that rescue drew nearer with each passing hour. Once darkness settled, she settled in too, listening to the soft drift of rainwater and the forest's quiet lullaby. With gratitude in her heart for every breath and moment of perseverance, Beth drifted again into a cautious yet hopeful sleep. Day 7, a renewed search. A renewed energy swept across Glacier National Park search teams. Park rangers, now joined by a specialized search and rescue unit, pushed deeper into the forest. Among them was Shadow, whose training and extraordinary nose had proven invaluable in countless rescues. Beth, of course, had no idea help was on its way. The handler glanced at Shadow, recalling the first time she noticed his calm curiosity. "Ready, buddy?" she murmured, and Shadow's ears flicked in silent reply. Slivers of early light cut through the pines, unveiling shifting curtains and mist around the ranger's boots. Every footstep pressed softly into rain-damp soil, stirring the scent of wet needles and fresh moss. Shadow and his handler shared a bond forged by countless hours of work, one built on unwavering cooperation, trust, and clear communication. Search and rescue work demands patience and real affection, qualities that allow them to function as a seamless team, ready for the most daunting challenges. Neuroscientists note that when dogs smell someone they trust, areas of the brain tied to emotion and reward light up, an insight underscoring how crucial the handler-dog connection can be. While humans rely mainly on vision, dogs depend on remarkably crafted noses, tens of thousands of times more sensitive than ours. With up to 300 million olfactory receptors, compared to our 6 million, they can detect faint, complex odors far beyond our range. Many receptors can cross-react with different molecules, letting dogs recognize more smells than raw receptor counts alone might suggest. Shadow's ears flicked, picking up an unspoken worry. Moments earlier, the handler had sensed no wind change, yet Shadow pivoted, nose skimming the ground. He pressed forward, guided by more than just standard odors. Perhaps most remarkable is the rate at which dogs inhale fresh aromas. Around 10 rapid breaths for every single one a human takes. That remarkable sensitivity means dogs can detect changes like drops in blood sugar or signs of an impending seizure by picking up on minute chemical shifts in breath or sweat. Depending on the dog's training and the samples used, they can do so with startling accuracy. Whether locating a lost hiker or quietly comforting someone at home, dogs are constantly reading the chemical world in ways we're only beginning to understand. When Shadow sniffed near the stream Beth left behind, he caught her scent particles on foliage and soil, letting him differentiate odors that would seem nearly identical to us, be they lingering human traces or passing wildlife. This skill is crucial for identifying distinct individuals or zeroing in on a single chemical in a complex mix. Shadow's olfactory bulb, about 30 times larger than a human's, decodes these signals, instantly analyzing the molecular makeup of each smell so he can identify what he's sensing. Those impulses then travel through 5 major neural pathways. Shadow paused, ears forward. There, a scuffed footprint, half hidden by wet leaves. He lowered his muzzle, drawing in the faint odor of damp pine mingled with traces of rubber. Yes, Beth was out there somewhere, and his training told him this was the trail. The handler recalled how a dog's olfactory bulb can link to the occipital lobe, our visual processor, giving canines an uncanny ability to see smells. It was a link unseen in other species, melding scent and sight in a way that occupied nearly 1% of a dog's brain. Watching Shadow hover over the partial footprint, she wondered if he was merging the faint human scent Beth had left behind with the shape pressed into the dirt. Almost a scent visual reference, that let him confirm who made it. Perhaps that explained his confident stride. He wasn't just sniffing or looking, he was doing both. Some researchers suggest such wiring might let dogs overlay smells on their visual field, though precisely how remains unclear. Wolves may or may not share these olfactory visual tracts, suggesting centuries of evolution sharpened certain canine skills to an edge we barely comprehend. Yet even with this powerful interface, dogs still rely more on smell than vision, especially in dense terrain. Shadow did so now, navigating a rugged path. Yet another neural pathway came into play, one leading from his nose to the corticospinal tract, choreographing each step so he avoided roots and rocks. A third pathway branched into his limbic system, tying smell to emotion and letting him read more than just footprints. Any subtle shift in Beth's scent, her anxiety, her weariness, echoed directly in his emotional centers. Shadow paused again, as if detecting fresh signs of her emotional state. He slowed, almost as though to say, "I know you're scared, but I'm here." It was biology and empathy entwined, a marvel that joined fear, focus, and the resolve to find whoever needed him most. Now he detected a different strain of worry drifting on the breeze. The handler coaxed him forward, trusting that the fourth of his 5 major neural pathways, the one devoted to analyzing subtle chemical cues, would sift through the lingering traces of Beth's anxiety. The dog pressed deeper into Glacier's silent green, never tiring of the crucial job, locating the lost hiker who needed him most. Shadow's memory and navigation circuit, the 5th of his 5 major scent pathways, helped him recall Beth's faint scent despite days of shifting weather. The synergy of smell, sight, memory, and emotion was precisely what Beth needed now. At the handler's encouragement, Shadow pressed deeper into Glacier's silent green, nose low to the ground, and ears tuned for any trace of the missing hiker. Humidity can make odor molecules linger, intensifying them. Light rain can heighten smells. Heavy downpours can shove odors closer to the ground, forcing dogs to adapt their sniffing style. And fog makes scents hover in the air, requiring a broader search pattern. But day by day, Shadow had trained for these conditions, calm and unruffled. It was almost as if every shift in the air was a silent lesson, and he had learned them all. When heavier rain fell, he switched from air sniffing to ground sniffing, nose close to the earth, tracking molecules directly. If you've ever watched a search dog at work, you've seen them alternate between ground sniffing, muzzle low, and air sniffing, muzzle high to catch drifting odor particles. Which tactic they pick depends on humidity, wind, terrain, and training. Ground sniffing lets a dog follow a scent path back to its origin, ignoring diversions. Air sniffing, on the other hand, lets them cover wide areas where a direct trail might be fragmented. Both methods require training and an ability to adapt. Dogs favor their right nostril for novel or threatening odors, switching left for more familiar ones. Though it sounds minor, it reveals a deep lateralization in how a dog's brain prioritizes scents, quickly sorting what's urgent. In truth, dogs don't just smell everything. They orchestrate a specialized blend of biology and behavior, physical, mental, and emotional processes, converting each whiff into vital information. In Shadow's story, precisely that synergy of keen smell, environmental awareness, and flexible sniffing techniques led him closer and closer to Beth. Dogs can detect the scent of a wild tortoise from up to 60 meters away, a rodent in its habitat from 50 meters, and decaying meat from 200 meters. But multiple variables can limit these talents. Besides weather, wind, and humidity, Other features matter. Traditionally, trackers like bloodhounds excel thanks to more receptor cells and larger nasal cavities. Still, motivation is key. Some breeds possess incredible olfactory structures but lack the stamina for lengthy or demanding tasks. Shadow, as it turned out, had both the drive and the training, and that drive was fueled by a deep bond with his handler. Drive, training style, and innate temperament all determine which dogs excel at sniffing out everything from tortoises to missing hikers. That very synergy of training and biology had brought Shadow here. Nose lifted to the damp morning air. The handler felt a flicker of pride as Shadow pressed forward. She remembered the day she brought him home. A cuddly pup with oversized paws and that calm, inquisitive stare. She never imagined how crucial he'd become, but with months of dog-centered guidance and kind social reinforcement, he led the team with calm assurance. Shadow was no ordinary dog. While other puppies scattered at a clinging dish, he trotted closer to investigate. That unflappable curiosity, paired with a sweet, eager-to-connect spirit, marked him as special. Rather than cowering or barking, he glanced back at the humans as if to say, "Is everything okay?" From puppyhood, their approach had always been dog-centered, encouraging exploration, problem-solving, and gentle redirection over harsh commands. Each success built Shadow's confidence and deepened his motivation. Over time, they layered on classical conditioning, linking human sense to rewards, and more complex tasks like tracking hidden trails and navigating fallen trees. Though Shadow's main goal that day was to find just one missing person, Beth, he had already learned to handle a wide spectrum of odors, thanks to his training. By mixing diverse human scents with distractors, he'd learned to parse complex blends even in Glacier's ever-shifting undergrowth. His handler credited his endurance to a healthy diet, an array of mock rescues, and that intangible bond of trust. By age 2, Shadow had the temperament needed for search and rescue. His remarkable sense of smell was second nature, paired with the confidence that came from daily engagement. If he showed stress, his handler answered with gentle words, a pat, maybe even a break. That sense of security kept his spirits high, giving him the steadiness he would need for moments exactly like this. Across the forest, in a small clearing, Beth clung to her own quiet confidence, though her energy was beginning to fade. By mid-morning, the search team inched through Glacier's dripping ferns, boots sinking into the soft mud. Shadow trotted beside his handler, ears alert for any hint of the missing hiker. Confidence radiated from both dog and human, an unspoken promise that all their preparation led to this moment. With each careful step, Shadow tested the air, fine-tuning his focus until he caught the faintest chemical trace of Beth's presence. Shadow slowed, muzzle raised. A subtle shift in wind carried a swirl of pine, damp earth, and something else. In that quiet moment, it felt almost mystical, as if nature had placed a final clue just ahead. With a soft signal, Shadow trotted forward, the underbrush crunching beneath his paws as he alternated between sniffing at ground level and lifting his muzzle to sample the cool morning air. With each careful inhale, he sifted through the intricate tapestry of aromas until he locked onto the faint chemical traces Beth had left behind. The handler felt a surge of gratitude for every moment she had spent protecting Shadow's emotional balance, giving him breaks when he was overstressed, encouraging him through tough drills. It all led to this, a calm, confident dog zeroing in on a missing hiker's barely detectable scent. Shadow led the rescuers deeper into the forest. The world was a mosaic of chemical markers: damp bark, mossy soil, a faint, salt-tinged fear. His heart pounded in tandem with the handler's, spurred by that primal urgency to find the human who needed him most. In a small clearing, Beth lay motionless, the chill of multiple nights etched into her pale features. At first, Beth blinked in disbelief. The sight of Shadow padding toward her seemed almost dreamlike, a gentle silhouette breaking through the haze of her fatigue. At the sound of rustling leaves, she mustered the strength to lift her head. Relief washed over her as she saw Shadow padding gently toward her, his eyes brimming with calm assurance. Beth's breath caught in her throat when she tried to speak. A wave of dizziness threatened to sweep her under. She braced a hand against the pine's trunk, blinking hard to keep her vision clear. Over the rushing in her ears, she heard a woman's steady voice. "We've got you. You're safe now." The handler's hand was warm on her shoulder, pressing the corners of a thermal blanket around Beth's shivering frame. Relief and exhaustion collapsed inside her, tearing up her eyes until everything blurred. "Thank you," she managed. A small spark of warmth flared in her chest as the dog pressed his muzzle gently against her palm. A wordless reassurance that he'd done his job, and done it well. Shadow's gift, instinct honed by patient training, achieved what no modern device could. Following a mere thread of human scent through miles of uncharted forest. In that moment, the quiet bond between humankind and its four-legged ally shone with near mythic clarity. A partnership resilient enough to reach across the wilderness and answer a call for help. Beth felt a surreal calm wash over her as the team gently eased her onto a stretcher. Now, pause for a moment and imagine yourself in her place. Lying in that forest clearing, on the brink of rescue. The chill in the air heightens your awareness of every sensation as the rescuers move you carefully onto the stretcher. The surreal calm beginning to envelop you. A soft blanket is tucked around your shoulders, and you sense the forest itself growing quieter, as though it recognizes your need for rest. A steady drizzle taps softly on the tarp above you, creating a lullaby of droplets that echo through the tall pines. Faint bird calls and the hushed murmurs of the rescue team weave into the rain's gentle patter, wrapping around you like a soothing melody. All around, the pine-scented air feels cool and damp against your skin. Yet the warmth of the blankets and the soft press of the stretcher remind you that you are secure. In this cocoon of calm, the tension you've carried for days seems to melt away. You can't tell whether the faint swaying motion comes from your own exhaustion or the careful footsteps of the people guiding you to safety. Either way, it feels oddly comforting, akin to being rocked in a cradle. With half-closed eyes, you look up at the canopy of leaves and branches, seeing them transform into a constellation of drifting stars. Beneath you, the wet earth feels alive, like it has a steady, gentle pulse, a heartbeat that resonates softly through your body. You breathe in the forest's scent, rich soil, bark, and fresh rain, and each inhale fills you with renewed gratitude. Now and then, you catch a glimpse of a loyal dog walking beside the stretcher, ears flicking in your direction as though to reassure you. Rest. You're safe now. When the rescuers traverse uneven ground, you feel a slight dip, but the motion only lulls you deeper into a dreamy state. The quiet of the woods feels like a protective embrace, each raindrop marking time in a slow and gentle rhythm. It's in this half-waking haze that you truly sense the forest's subtle pulse beneath your spine. You imagine it as the Earth's own heartbeat, beating in unison with yours. Each throb a promise of life and connection. The muffled words of the rescue team seep into your consciousness, warm and caring. Yet you can't quite make them out, nor do you need to. It's enough to know you're being tended to, guided through the tall trees toward a place of safety and warmth. You close your eyes, letting the blanket shield you from the chill. The rain's lullaby continues overhead, and even the occasional snap of a twig blends into the forest's own nighttime hum. Time seems to stretch here, each moment inviting you to sink further into its gentle, protective cocoon. You draw a slow breath, exhaling any lingering fear. All that remains is the comforting sway of the stretcher, the softness of the blankets, and the faint sense of the earth beneath you, living, breathing, and cradling you in its ancient embrace. The forest, the rain, the dog's calm presence, all have come together to usher you safely through the wild. And as you drift toward a peaceful sleep, you realize you are no longer alone. You are part of this gentle pulse that resonates through the land and every living thing within it. Yet as you sink further into rest, that story becomes a lullaby of the forest and steady Paws. You remember the cool drizzle tapping on the rescue tarp, the calm voices guiding you out of the darkness, and the dog's gentle whimper echoing reassurance. At last, you let your eyes flutter closed, surrendering to the forest's lullaby. The rhythmic patter of raindrops on the tarp, the muffled footfalls of your rescuers, and the soft exhalations of the dog by your side blend into a single, gentle hum. You take one more deep breath, cool and pine-scented, and feel yourself becoming weightless, drifting on a tranquil current of warmth and comfort. With each passing heartbeat, you settle further into the quiet heart of the forest, reassured by every subtle sound and the knowledge that you are safe, held in an ancient embrace. Gradually, the world fades into a calming darkness, and you slip into a peaceful sleep, carried on the hush of trees and the faithful presence of your four-legged ally.